The sound of car tires on gravel made Sarah's stomach twist. She pressed her face against the cool window of the beach house and watched her husband pull into the driveway with another woman in his passenger seat. The woman was young, maybe 25, with long blonde hair that caught the afternoon sun. She was laughing at something Tom had said, her hand resting on his arm like she owned him. Sarah had been waiting for 3 hours. 3 hours of pacing the wooden floors, checking her phone, and fighting the urge to throw up. She had found the messages 2 weeks ago. Pictures of this same woman in hotel rooms. Sweet words that Tom had never said to her. Plans to bring her here, to their special place. The beach house had been their dream. They had saved for 5 years to buy it. Every weekend for the past 2 years, they had driven the 4 hours from the city to this small coastal town. Tom had proposed to her on the deck overlooking the ocean. They had talked about growing old here, watching sunsets together. Now he was bringing his lover to their sanctuary. Sarah stepped back from the window as Tom got out of the car. He looked happy, relaxed. His hair was messy from the wind, and he was wearing the blue shirt she had bought him for his birthday. The woman got out too, stretching her arms above her head. She wore a short sundress and sandals. She looked like she belonged at the beach. She looked like she belonged with Tom. What they didn't know was that Sarah wasn't alone. She had her own surprise waiting in the bedroom upstairs. Her own secret that would change everything. The front door opened and Sarah heard Tom's voice. "The place is amazing, isn't it? Wait until you see the view from the deck." "It's perfect," the woman replied. Her voice was soft, musical. "I can see why you love it here." Sarah's hands shook as she smoothed down her dress. She had chosen it carefully. Black, simple, elegant. The same dress she had worn to their anniversary dinner last month, when Tom had told her he was working late but was actually with this woman. Footsteps echoed in the hallway. Sarah took a deep breath and walked toward the living room. It was time to face them. Tom froze when he saw her. His face went white, then red, then white again. The woman beside him looked confused, glancing between them. "Sarah?" Tom's voice cracked. "What are you doing here?" "Hello, Tom." Sarah's voice was steady, calm. She had practiced this moment in her head 100 times. "I thought I would surprise you." The woman stepped forward. "I'm sorry, I don't understand. Who is this?" Tom's mouth opened and closed like a fish. Sarah almost felt sorry for him. Almost. "I'm his wife," Sarah said, extending her hand. "And you are?" The woman's face crumpled. She looked at Tom with wide eyes. "Wife? You said you were divorced." "That was a lie," Sarah said gently. "One of many, I'm sure." Tom found his voice. "Sarah, I can explain." "Can you?" Sarah tilted her head. "Can you explain why you brought her to our place? To the house where we planned our future? Can you explain the hotel receipts I found? The jewelry you bought her with our money?" The woman was backing toward the door. "I should go. I didn't know. I'm so sorry." "Don't leave," Sarah said. "Not yet. I have something to show both of you." She walked to the staircase and called up. "You can come down now." Heavy footsteps sounded from above. A man appeared at the top of the stairs. He was tall, broad-shouldered, with dark hair and kind eyes. He was wearing jeans and a white t-shirt that showed off his muscled arms. "Tom," Sarah said as the man descended the stairs, "I'd like you to meet James. James, this is my husband Tom and his friend." Tom's face had gone completely white. "Who is he?" "Someone who knows how to treat a woman right," Sarah said. "Someone who listens when I talk. Someone who makes me feel beautiful and wanted and valued." The woman was crying now, mascara running down her cheeks. Tom was staring at James like he was seeing a ghost. "How long?" Tom whispered. "How long have you been cheating?" Sarah countered. "Because I have receipts going back 8 months. 8 months of lies, Tom. 8 months of you making me feel crazy for questioning where you were, who you were with." James reached the bottom of the stairs and put his arm around Sarah's waist. She leaned into him, feeling his warmth, his strength. He smelled like soap and coffee, nothing like Tom's expensive cologne. "Sarah, please," Tom said. "We need to talk. Alone." "No," Sarah said firmly. "We're past talking. We're past fixing this. I'm done." She pulled an envelope from her purse and handed it to Tom. "Divorce papers. Already filed. You can sign them or not, but this marriage is over." Tom's hands shook as he took the envelope. "Sarah, don't do this. We can work it out. I'll end it with her. I'll do anything." "You already did everything," Sarah said. "You chose her over me. You chose lies over truth. You chose to break our vows, our trust, our life together." The woman was sobbing openly now. "I didn't know," she kept saying. I didn't know he was married. Sarah looked at her with something that might have been pity. What's your name? Jessica, the woman whispered. Jessica, how old are you? 24. Sarah nodded. He told you he was divorced, didn't he? Probably said his ex-wife was crazy, that she took everything in the divorce. Jessica nodded miserably. That's what he does, Sarah said. He lies. He's very good at it. He made me believe him for 15 years. Tom was staring at the envelope in his hands. 15 years, Sarah. Doesn't that mean anything to you? It means everything to me, Sarah said. That's why this hurts so much. 15 years of building a life together and you threw it away for what? For her? For the excitement of sneaking around? It wasn't like that, Tom protested. Then what was it like? Sarah's voice rose for the first time. Tell me, Tom. Help me understand how you could look me in the eye every morning and lie to me. How you could use our credit card to buy her presents. How you could bring her to our house. Silence filled the room. Outside, seagulls cried and waves crashed against the shore. The sounds that had once brought Sarah peace now felt like mockery. James squeezed her hand. You don't have to do this now, he said quietly. Yes, I do, Sarah said. I need to say this. I need him to hear it. She looked at Tom, really looked at him. He was still handsome at 42. Still the man she had fallen in love with in college. But there was something different in his eyes now. Something selfish and small that she had refused to see before. I loved you, she said simply. I loved you more than I loved myself. I would have done anything for you, given up anything for you. And you knew that. You used that. Tom's eyes filled with tears. I still love you. No, Sarah said. You love the idea of me. You love having someone at home to take care of you while you played house with her. You love having your cake and eating it too. She turned to Jessica, who was still crying silently. And you're young, so maybe you don't know better yet. But learn this now, a man who will cheat with you will cheat on you. Always. Jessica nodded, wiping her eyes. I'm sorry, she whispered. I really didn't know. I believe you, Sarah said. And I'm not angry with you. You're not the one who made vows to me. She looked back at Tom. But you are. And you broke every single one of them. The room fell silent again. Sarah could hear her own heartbeat, feel James's steady presence beside her. She had imagined this moment so many times, but she had never expected to feel so calm, so sure. I want you to leave, she said finally. Both of you. This house belongs to both of us until the divorce is final, but I'm asking you to go. Give me this weekend. Give me time to say goodbye to this place properly. Tom's face crumpled. Sarah, please. Let's talk about this. Let's try to work it out. There's nothing to work out, Sarah said. You made your choice. Now I'm making mine. She walked to the front door and opened it. The ocean breeze swept in, carrying the scent of salt and seaweed. It was a beautiful day. The kind of day she and Tom used to spend walking on the beach, planning their future. Go, she said quietly. Jessica walked to the door first, her shoulders shaking with sobs. She paused beside Sarah. I really am sorry, she said. I know, Sarah replied. Take care of yourself. Tom was the last to move. He stood in the middle of the living room, looking lost and broken. This isn't over, he said. Yes, it is, Sarah said. It's been over for months. I just finally caught up. After they left, Sarah closed the door and leaned against it. The house felt different now. Lighter somehow, despite everything that had just happened. James was watching her carefully. How do you feel? Sarah considered the question. Free, she said finally. Scared but free. He smiled and pulled her into his arms. We'll figure it out together. Outside, she heard Tom's car start and drive away. The sound faded into the distance, mixing with the eternal rhythm of the waves. Sarah closed her eyes and listened to the ocean, feeling something inside her chest loosen for the first time in months. The worst part was over. Now she could begin again. The morning after the confrontation, Sarah woke up in James's arms feeling like a different person. Sunlight streamed through the bedroom curtains, and she could hear seagulls calling outside. For the first time in months, she had slept deeply, without the anxiety dreams that had plagued her since discovering Tom's affair. James was still sleeping, his dark hair messy against the white pillow. Sarah studied his face in the gentle morning light. She had met him 6 weeks ago at a coffee shop near her office. He was a freelance photographer, taking pictures for a travel magazine. They had started talking about the beach towns he had visited, and she had mentioned this house without thinking. I'd love to photograph it sometime, he had said. It sounds beautiful. That conversation had led to others. Coffee dates that turned into long walks. Dinners where they talked until the restaurant closed around them. He had listened to her talk about her marriage, about the growing distance between her and Tom, about feeling invisible in her own life. "You're not invisible to me," he had said one evening as they sat on a park bench watching the sunset. "You're the most vibrant person I've ever met." It had been James who encouraged her to hire the private investigator. James who held her when she cried after seeing the photos of Tom and Jessica together. James who helped her plan this weekend, this confrontation that had been building for weeks. She slipped out of bed quietly and padded to the kitchen to make coffee. The house felt peaceful in the morning light. Through the window, she could see the ocean stretching to the horizon, endless and calm. This view had always centered her, even during the worst times in her marriage. Her phone buzzed on the counter. A text from her sister Claire. "How did it go? Are you okay?" Sarah typed back, "It's done. I'll call you later." Another buzz. This time from her lawyer. "Papers served. He has 30 days to respond." Sarah poured 2 cups of coffee and carried them back to the bedroom. James was awake now, sitting up against the headboard with his hair still tousled. "Good morning," he said, accepting the mug gratefully. "How are you feeling?" "Different," Sarah said, settling beside him. "Like I've been holding my breath for months and can finally exhale." They sat in comfortable silence, drinking their coffee and watching the light change outside the window. Sarah felt a strange mix of emotions, grief for the end of her marriage, relief that the lies were finally over, and something that might have been hope for whatever came next. "Do you regret it?" James asked quietly. Sarah considered the question. "I regret that it came to this. I regret that 15 years ended with such cruelty. But I don't regret standing up for myself. I don't regret choosing my own happiness for once." Her phone rang. Tom's name flashed on the screen. Sarah let it go to voicemail, then another call, then another. Finally, she turned the phone off. "He's not going to give up easily," James said. "I know," Sarah replied. "But it doesn't matter. I'm done fighting for someone who stopped fighting for us a long time ago." They spent the morning walking on the beach. The sand was cool under their feet, and the waves lapped gently at the shore. Sarah had walked this beach hundreds of times with Tom, but it felt different now. New somehow, like she was seeing it through fresh eyes. "Tell me about growing up here," James said as they picked up shells along the water's edge. "I didn't grow up here," Sarah said. "Tom and I found this place on our honeymoon. We were driving up the coast and we saw the for sale sign on this house. It was run down then, needed a lot of work. But we fell in love with it." She picked up a perfect sand dollar and turned it over in her palm. "We spent every vacation for 5 years fixing it up. Tom was good with his hands then. He built the deck, refinished the floors. I painted every room, planted the garden. It must be hard to let it go," James said. Sarah looked back at the house sitting on the bluff above them. "It is. But it's not really ours anymore, is it? He brought her here. He contaminated it." They walked further down the beach, past the other houses that dotted the coastline. Most were vacation homes like theirs, empty during the week but full of families on weekends. Sarah had always imagined that she and Tom would retire here, that they would be the old couple walking hand in hand at sunrise. "What will you do now?" James asked. "I don't know," Sarah admitted. "I've been Tom's wife for so long, I'm not sure who I am without that. I have my job, my friends, but everything was built around our life together." "Maybe that's not such a bad thing," James said. "Maybe this is your chance to figure out who Sarah really is." They turned back toward the house as the sun climbed higher. Sarah felt lighter with each step, like she was walking away from her old life and toward something new. Back at the house, they found Tom's car in the driveway again. Sarah's stomach clenched, but she squared her shoulders. She had known he would come back. Tom was sitting on the front steps, his head in his hands. He looked like he hadn't slept. His clothes were wrinkled, his hair unwashed. When he saw them approaching, he stood up slowly. "Sarah, please," he said. "Just give me 5 minutes." "You had 15 years," Sarah replied. "That's enough time." "I made a mistake," Tom said desperately. "The worst mistake of my life. But we can fix this. We can go to counseling, we can work it out." Sarah looked at him sadly. "It wasn't a mistake, Tom. It was a choice. Hundreds of choices. Every time you lied to me, every time you chose to be with her instead of working on us, every time you made me feel crazy for trusting my instincts." "I'll do anything," Tom said. "I'll cut off all contact with her. I'll quit my job if I have to. I'll do whatever it takes." "Why?" Sarah asked. "Why now? Because you got caught? Because you're embarrassed? Because you don't want to pay alimony?" Tom flinched. Because I love you. No, Sarah said firmly. You love the convenience of me. You love having someone to come home to after you've been with her. You love the image of being a married man while you play bachelor on the side. She walked past him to the front door. I'm going inside now. When I come back out, I want you gone. Don't make me call the police. Sarah, wait, Tom called after her. She turned back one last time. What would you have done if I hadn't found out? How long would you have kept lying to me? Tom's silence was answer enough. Inside the house, Sarah sat on the couch and put her head in her hands. James sat beside her, not touching, just present. This is harder than I thought it would be, she admitted. Ending a marriage is never easy, James said. Even when it's the right thing to do. I keep thinking about all the good times we had. Our wedding day, our first apartment, the trips we took. It wasn't all bad. Of course it wasn't, James said. That's what makes this so hard. If he had been a monster, it would be easier to walk away. But he wasn't always like this. Sarah looked around the living room at all the photos of her and Tom over the years. Smiling at the camera, arms around each other, looking happy. Had they been happy? Or had she just been good at pretending? When did it start going wrong? She wondered aloud. Does it matter? James asked gently. What matters is that it did go wrong, and instead of trying to fix it, he chose to look elsewhere. A car door slammed outside. Through the window, Sarah watched Tom get into his car and drive away. She felt a strange mix of relief and sadness. Part of her life was ending, but another part was just beginning. What happens now? She asked. Now you heal, James said. Now you figure out what you want your life to look like. Now you learn to trust yourself again. Sarah nodded, feeling the truth of his words. She had been so focused on saving her marriage that she had forgotten to save herself. She had been so busy being the perfect wife that she had lost sight of who she was as a person. Will you help me? She asked. James smiled and took her hand. For as long as you want me to. Outside, the ocean continued its eternal rhythm, washing the shore clean with each wave. Sarah closed her eyes and listened to its song, feeling something inside her begin to heal. The worst was over. Now she could start again. The divorce proceedings moved faster than Sarah had expected. Tom's lawyer was aggressive, demanding half of everything, including the beach house. Sarah's lawyer, a sharp woman named Patricia, was having none of it. He's the one who broke up the marriage, Patricia explained during one of their meetings. Adultery is still grounds for fault-based divorce in this state. We have photos, receipts, witness testimony. He's not in a position to make demands. Sarah sat in the conference room of Patricia's law office, looking out at the city skyline. 3 months had passed since the confrontation at the beach house, and she was surprised by how much she had changed. She felt stronger, more centered. More herself than she had been in years. What about the house? Sarah asked. You have a strong case for keeping it, Patricia said. You contributed equally to the purchase and renovation. Plus, he defiled the marital home by bringing his mistress there. The judge won't look favorably on that. Sarah's phone buzzed with a text from James. How's the meeting going? She smiled and typed back, good. See you tonight. Their relationship had deepened over the past months. What had started as comfort during a difficult time had grown into something real and solid. James understood her in ways Tom never had. He listened when she talked, supported her dreams, made her laugh. He treated her like an equal partner, not a supporting character in his life story. There's something else we need to discuss, Patricia said, pulling Sarah's attention back to the meeting. Tom's lawyer is claiming you committed adultery too. They're going to argue that your relationship with James started before you separated. Sarah's stomach dropped. Can they prove that? Do you have any evidence of your relationship before the separation? Photos, receipts, anything that shows you were together romantically? Sarah thought back to those early weeks with James. They had been careful, but there might be something. A dinner receipt from a romantic restaurant. A photo someone had taken of them at a gallery opening. Maybe, she admitted. But it was never physical before I confronted Tom. James was just a friend. The court won't see it that way if they can prove you were having an emotional affair, Patricia warned. But don't panic. Even if they can prove it, adultery by both parties usually just means everything gets split down the middle. You won't lose the house, but you might have to buy out his half. After the meeting, Sarah walked to the coffee shop where she had first met James. It seemed fitting somehow, coming full circle. She ordered a latte and sat at their old table by the window, watching people hurry past on the sidewalk. Her phone rang. Claire's name appeared on the screen. How did it go? Her sister asked without preamble. Complicated, Sarah said. Tom's fighting for half of everything, including the beach house. That bastard, Claire said. After what he did, he should be grateful you're not asking for more. Sarah smiled. Claire had been her rock through all of this. 2 years older and fiercely protective, she had wanted to confront Tom herself when she first learned about the affair. Mom called me yesterday, Claire said. She's worried about you. Sarah sighed. Her mother had always adored Tom, seen him as the son she never had. Learning about his affair had shattered her almost as much as it had Sarah. She thinks you're being too hasty, Claire continued. She keeps saying marriage is hard work, that you should try to forgive him. Easy for her to say, Sarah replied. Dad never cheated on her. That she knows of, Claire said darkly. The point is you're doing the right thing. Don't let anyone make you feel guilty for choosing yourself for once. After they hung up, Sarah sat in the coffee shop for another hour watching the world go by. She thought about her mother's words about forgiveness and second chances. Part of her wondered if she was being too hard on Tom. After all, people made mistakes. Maybe they could have worked it out. But then she remembered Jessica's face when she realized Tom was married. She remembered the hotel receipts, the jewelry, the months of lies. She remembered how small she had felt, how worthless when she discovered the truth. No, she was doing the right thing. James found her there as the sun was setting, painting the coffee shop windows golden. He slid into the seat across from her, his camera bag slung over his shoulder. Rough day? He asked, reading her expression. Just thinking, Sarah said. Tom's lawyer is going to argue that I cheated too. James reached across the table and took her hand. Are you worried? A little, Sarah admitted. Not about the legal stuff but about what people will think. About whether I'm any better than he is. You know the difference, James said firmly. You were honest about your feelings. You didn't sneak around or lie. You confronted the situation head-on. But I did have feelings for you while I was still married, Sarah said. That has to count for something. Having feelings isn't the same as acting on them, James pointed out. You didn't betray your vows. You didn't lie to Tom. You gave him every opportunity to fight for your marriage. Sarah squeezed his hand. How did you get so wise? Painful experience, James said with a wry smile. My first marriage ended similarly. Not with infidelity but with lies and broken trust. I know what it feels like to question everything about yourself when someone you love betrays you. Sarah looked at him with surprise. He had never mentioned being married before. You were married? She asked. For 3 years, James said. Her name was Rachel. We met in college, got married young. I thought we were happy but she was living a double life. Gambling, drinking, running up debt behind my back. By the time I found out, we were broke and she was having an affair with her bookie. I'm sorry, Sarah said. That must have been devastating. It was, James admitted. But it also freed me. I learned that I couldn't save someone who didn't want to be saved. I learned that love isn't enough if there's no trust or respect. They walked back to Sarah's apartment as the city lights began to twinkle in the gathering darkness. Sarah had moved out of the house she had shared with Tom, unable to stay there after everything that had happened. The apartment was small but cozy, with a view of the park across the street. I've been thinking about what comes next, Sarah said as they climbed the stairs to her floor. Oh, James said. After the divorce is final, after everything is settled, I want to travel. I want to see places I've never been, do things I've never done. I want to remember who I was before I became Tom's wife. James smiled. That sounds like a good plan. Where will you go first? I don't know, Sarah said, unlocking her apartment door. Maybe Europe. I've always wanted to see the art museums in Paris, the castles in Scotland. Tom never wanted to travel internationally. He said it was too expensive, too complicated. It's not, James said. It's actually quite easy once you get the hang of it. I could show you if you want. Sarah turned to look at him, seeing the hope in his eyes. Are you asking to come with me? I'm asking if you'd want me to, James said carefully. I know you need time to figure out who you are on your own. But when you're ready, if you're ready, I'd love to explore the world with you. Sarah felt her heart flutter. The idea of traveling with James, of building new memories together, was both exciting and terrifying. Ask me after the divorce is final, she said. Ask me when I'm really free. I will, James promised. That night, they cooked dinner together in Sarah's small kitchen. James told her stories about his photography assignments, the places he had been, the people he had met. Sarah found herself laughing more than she had in years, feeling lighter and more hopeful than she had thought possible. Later, as they sat on her couch watching an old movie, Sarah's phone buzzed with a text. Tom's name appeared on the screen. "I miss you," the message read. "I miss us. Please don't give up on 15 years. Sarah deleted the message without responding. James pretended not to notice, but she felt him squeeze her hand a little tighter. "No regrets?" he asked quietly. "None," Sarah said and meant it. Outside, the city hummed with life and possibility. Sarah closed her eyes and listened to its rhythm, feeling grateful for second chances and new beginnings. She was learning to trust herself again, learning that she deserved better than a life built on lies. The hardest part was behind her now. The future stretched ahead, full of promise and adventure. For the first time in years, Sarah couldn't wait to see what came next. The mediation session was scheduled for a rainy Thursday morning in October. Sarah arrived at the lawyer's office 10 minutes early, her stomach churning with nervous energy. She had hoped to avoid seeing Tom face to face, but both lawyers had insisted that mediation was the best way to resolve their property disputes. Patricia met her in the lobby, professional and reassuring in her navy suit. "Remember," she said as they walked to the conference room, "stay calm, stick to the facts, and don't let him manipulate your emotions." Sarah nodded, smoothing down her black dress. She had chosen it carefully, professional but not severe, confident but not aggressive. She wanted Tom to see that she was doing well, that she didn't need him anymore. The conference room was sterile and cold, with a long table surrounded by leather chairs. Tom was already there with his lawyer, a man named Richard who looked like he wrestled sharks for fun. Tom was wearing the gray suit Sarah had helped him pick out for job interviews years ago. He looked thinner than she remembered, with dark circles under his eyes. The mediator, a woman named Dr. Stevens, was pleasant but businesslike. She explained the process, emphasizing that they were there to reach a fair agreement without going to trial. "Let's start with the marital home," Dr. Stevens said, consulting her notes. "Mrs. Wilson, you're seeking to retain full ownership of the beach house. Mr. Wilson, your position is that you should receive half the value. Can you each explain your reasoning?" Sarah's lawyer spoke first, outlining their argument about Tom's adultery and the violation of the marital home. Tom's lawyer countered with claims about equal contribution and Sarah's own alleged affair. Through it all, Tom stared at Sarah with an expression she couldn't read. Sadness? Regret? Anger? She focused on Dr. Stevens, refusing to meet his gaze. "The house means everything to me," Sarah said when asked to speak. "Tom and I built it together, but he destroyed what it represented when he brought another woman there. I should be able to heal there, to make new memories without that contamination." Contamination. Tom's lawyer said sharply. "That's rather dramatic language, don't you think?" Sarah's temper flared. "Is it dramatic? Your client brought his mistress to the house where we planned to grow old together. He had sex with her in our bed, walked with her on our beach. How would you describe that?" "Objection," Richard said automatically, then caught himself. "I mean, that's inflammatory." "It's the truth," Sarah said calmly. Dr. Stevens intervened. "Mr. Wilson, would you like to respond?" Tom cleared his throat. He looked smaller than Sarah remembered, diminished somehow. "I know I made mistakes," he said quietly. "Terrible mistakes. But that house represents 15 years of our life together. Good years, Sarah. Happy years. You can't just erase all of that." "I'm not trying to erase it," Sarah said. "I'm trying to heal from it. I'm trying to build something new." "With him," Tom said, and there was bitterness in his voice now. "With James." Sarah felt her cheeks burn. "My relationship with James has nothing to do with this." "Doesn't it?" Tom leaned forward. "You moved on pretty quickly, Sarah. Makes me wonder how long it was really going on." "Careful," Patricia warned. But Sarah was done being careful. "You want to know when it started, Tom? It started when you stopped coming home for dinner. It started when you stopped talking to me, stopped touching me, stopped acting like I mattered. James didn't seduce me away from you. You drove me away all by yourself." The room fell silent. Dr. Stevens made a note. Tom's face had gone pale. "I never stopped loving you," Tom said quietly. "Yes, you did," Sarah replied. "You just forgot to tell me." They moved on to other issues: retirement accounts, credit card debt, personal property. The discussions were tedious but less emotional. Sarah found herself watching Tom as he argued over things that had once seemed important but now felt trivial. When they broke for lunch, Sarah found herself alone in the hallway with Tom. His lawyer and Patricia were discussing strategy in another room. "You look good," Tom said awkwardly. "Thank you," Sarah replied, not sure how else to respond. "Are you happy?" he asked. Sarah considered the question. "I'm getting there." "I miss you," Tom said. "I miss us. I know I screwed up, but we were good together for a long time. That has to count for something. Sarah looked at him, really looked at him, for the first time in months. She saw the man she had fallen in love with in college, the man who had made her laugh, who had held her when she cried, who had dreamed of a future with her. But she also saw the man who had lied to her for months, who had shared intimate moments with another woman, who had made her feel worthless and paranoid. It does count for something, she said finally. But it doesn't count for everything. And it doesn't erase what you did. I would do anything to take it back, Tom said desperately. Anything. I know, Sarah said sadly. But you can't. That's the thing about betrayal, Tom. You can't undo it. You can't unfeel it. It's always there like a crack in a mirror. Even if you try to ignore it, you can still see it. When they returned to the conference room, the afternoon session was more productive. Faced with the reality that Sarah wasn't going to back down, Tom's lawyer began to negotiate in earnest. By 5 o'clock they had reached an agreement. Sarah would keep the beach house but would buy out Tom's share over 3 years. They would split their retirement accounts and savings. Tom would keep his car and his golf clubs. Sarah would keep her jewelry and her grandmother's antique furniture. It was strange, Sarah thought, how a life together could be reduced to a list of assets and liabilities. As they were signing the final documents, Tom looked at her one last time. I hope you'll be happy, he said. I hope you will too, Sarah replied and meant it. Outside the lawyer's office, the rain had stopped. Sarah walked to her car feeling lighter than she had in months. Her phone buzzed with a text from James. How did it go? It's over, she typed back. Really over. Are you okay? Sarah considered the question as she sat in her car, watching the city come alive in the late afternoon light. Was she okay? She had just ended her marriage, divided up 15 years of shared life, closed the door on a relationship that had once meant everything to her. But as she thought about the future, about the beach house that would be truly hers, about the trips she would take, about the life she could build with James, she realized she was more than okay. She was free. Yes, she texted back. I'm perfect. 6 months later, Sarah stood on the deck of the beach house, watching the sunrise paint the ocean in shades of gold and pink. The house was hers now, completely and legally. She had made the final payment to Tom 3 weeks ago, and Patricia had sent her the deed with a note. Congratulations on your new beginning. The house felt different now. Lighter somehow, as if Tom's presence had been weighing it down all these years. Sarah had redecorated slowly, replacing things that reminded her of their marriage with pieces that reflected who she was becoming. The bedroom had new furniture, new bedding, new art on the walls. The living room was brighter, filled with plants and books and photographs from her recent travels. James appeared in the doorway carrying 2 cups of coffee. He had moved in gradually over the past few months, bringing his cameras and his books, his easy laughter and his gentle presence. It felt natural having him there, like the house had been waiting for him all along. Good morning, he said, handing her a mug. Sleep well. Better than I have in years, Sarah said, leaning into his warmth. They stood together in comfortable silence, watching the ocean wake up. A few early morning joggers were already on the beach, and fishing boats dotted the horizon. It was peaceful in a way that Sarah had forgotten was possible. I have something to tell you, James said, and Sarah heard excitement in his voice. Oh. She turned to look at him. I got a call yesterday from National Geographic. They want me to do a photography series on coastal towns in Europe. 6 months of travel, all expenses paid. Sarah felt her heart jump. James, that's amazing. What an opportunity. It is, he agreed. But there's a catch. I'd have to leave next month. Sarah nodded, trying to keep her expression neutral. She was happy for him truly, but the thought of being alone again made her chest tight. How long would you be gone? She asked. 6 months, James said. Maybe longer if they like what I produce. That's a long time, Sarah said quietly. James turned to face her fully. It is. But I was hoping you might come with me. Sarah blinked in surprise. What? Come with me, James repeated. You said you wanted to travel, wanted to see Europe. This could be perfect. We could work together. You could write about the places we visit while I photograph them. We could turn it into a book. Sarah stared at him, her mind racing. Leave everything behind for 6 months? Travel across Europe with James? It was exciting and terrifying and completely unlike anything she had ever done. I don't know, she said hesitantly. My job, the house, my life here. Your job will give you a leave of absence, James said. You're one of their best writers and you have plenty of vacation time saved up. The house will be here when we get back. And your life. He paused, choosing his words carefully. Your life is whatever you want it to be now. Sarah looked out at the ocean thinking. 6 months ago she would never have considered such a thing. She would have worried about security, about practicality, about what other people would think. But 6 months ago she was a different person. A person who had lived her life according to other people's expectations, who had made herself small to fit into someone else's vision of who she should be. What would we do? She asked. James's face lit up. Everything. We'd start in Scotland, photograph the fishing villages along the coast. Then Ireland, Wales, Cornwall. We'd work our way down through France, Spain, Portugal. We'd stay in small towns, meet local people, tell their stories. It sounds incredible, Sarah admitted. It would be, James said. But only if you want to do it. I won't pressure you. I know you're still figuring out who you are after everything that happened. Sarah thought about Tom, about the safe, predictable life they had built together. He had never wanted to travel internationally, had never encouraged her to take risks or chase dreams. He had been content with their small, contained world, and she had convinced herself she was too. But that wasn't who she really was. She had dreams, ambitions, a sense of adventure that she had buried beneath years of compromise and conformity. When would we leave? She asked. Next month, James said. I know it's short notice, but the magazine wants to start the series in spring when the light is best. Sarah nodded slowly. Next month. It was terrifyingly soon and not nearly soon enough. I need to think about it, she said. Of course, James said, squeezing her hand. Take all the time you need. But even as she said it, Sarah knew what her answer would be. The part of her that had been sleeping for years was finally waking up, stretching, ready to live again. That afternoon, Sarah called her boss and requested a meeting. Linda Harrison was in her 50s, sharp and successful, the kind of woman Sarah had always admired but never thought she could be. You want to take 6 months off to travel Europe? Linda said, raising an eyebrow. That's not exactly typical vacation planning. I know it's unusual, Sarah said, but I've been at the company for 8 years. I've never taken more than a week off at a time. I have 3 months of vacation saved up, and I'd be willing to take the other 3 unpaid. Linda leaned back in her chair, studying Sarah. This is about your divorce, isn't it? Partly, Sarah admitted. But it's also about the fact that I'm 38 years old and I've never done anything just for me. I've never taken a real risk, never chased a dream, never said yes to something that scared me. And this scares you? Terrifies me, Sarah said honestly. But in a good way. Linda smiled. You know what? Good for you. Life's too short to play it safe all the time. She pulled out a form from her desk drawer. Fill this out. We'll call it a sabbatical. Unpaid, but your position will be here when you get back. Really? Sarah felt a rush of gratitude. Really? Just promise me you'll write about it. I want to live vicariously through your adventure. That evening, Sarah called Claire to tell her the news. Her sister's reaction was exactly what she expected. Are you insane? Claire said. You just got divorced, you're barely back on your feet, and now you want to run off to Europe with a man you've known for less than a year? I'm not running off, Sarah said patiently. I'm choosing to live my life. What if it doesn't work out with James? What if you're stuck in some foreign country with no money and no way home? Then I'll figure it out, Sarah said. Claire, I spent 15 years being safe. I stayed in a marriage that was slowly killing my soul because it was comfortable, because it was what I was supposed to do. I'm done living my life according to other people's expectations. There was silence on the other end of the line. Finally, Claire sighed. You're really going to do this, aren't you? Yes, Sarah said. I really am. Then I guess I better help you pack, Claire said grudgingly. Someone has to make sure you don't forget your passport. That night, Sarah and James sat on the beach behind the house, wrapped in a blanket as they watched the stars appear one by one. The ocean was calm, the waves gentle against the shore. I talked to my boss today, Sarah said. Oh. James tried to keep his voice casual, but she could hear the hope in it. She approved my sabbatical, Sarah said. 6 months unpaid leave. James turned to look at her, his eyes bright in the moonlight. Does that mean? It means yes, Sarah said, smiling. I want to go with you. I want to see the world. I want to take pictures and write stories and eat food I can't pronounce. I want to get lost in foreign cities and find my way back. I want to live. James kissed her then, soft and sweet and full of promise. When they broke apart, Sarah felt like she was glowing from the inside out. Are you sure? He asked. I'm sure, Sarah said. For the first time in my adult life, I'm absolutely sure about something. They made plans that night, sitting on the sand with James's laptop, booking flights and researching locations. Sarah felt giddy with excitement and possibility. She was really doing this. She was really going to travel across Europe with a man who loved her, who supported her dreams, who wanted to build a life of adventure with her. As they walked back to the house, Sarah thought about Tom. She wondered what he would think if he knew about her plans. Would he be surprised? Or jealous? She realized she didn't really care. This wasn't about him anymore. This was about her, about the life she was choosing to build. The house looked beautiful in the moonlight, solid and welcoming on its bluff above the ocean. In 6 weeks she would leave it behind for half a year. But she wasn't worried about it. The house had taught her that home wasn't a place, was a feeling. And she carried that feeling with her now, wherever she went. The weeks before their departure flew by in a whirlwind of preparation. Sarah spent her days organizing the house for her absence, arranging for a caretaker and researching their itinerary. She bought new luggage, comfortable walking shoes, and a travel journal with a soft leather cover. 2 weeks before they were set to leave, Sarah received an unexpected phone call. "Is this Sarah Wilson?" The voice was young, female, nervous. "Yes, who is this?" "This is Jessica. We met at your beach house last year." "I was with your husband." Sarah felt her stomach drop. She hadn't heard from or about Jessica since that awful day. "What do you want?" "I need to tell you something," Jessica said quickly. "About Tom. About what really happened." Sarah sat down heavily in her kitchen chair. "Jessica, I don't want to rehash the past. I've moved on." "Please," Jessica said, and Sarah could hear tears in her voice. "Just 5 minutes. There are things you don't know, things that might matter for your divorce." Against her better judgment, Sarah agreed to meet Jessica at a small cafe downtown. She almost brought James but decided this was something she needed to face alone. Jessica looked different than Sarah remembered. Thinner, with dark circles under her eyes and an anxious energy that made her hands shake as she stirred her coffee. "Thank you for coming," Jessica said. "I wasn't sure you would. What do you want to tell me?" Sarah asked, wanting to get this over with. Jessica took a deep breath. "Tom didn't just lie to you. He lied to me too. About everything." "I know he told you he was divorced," Sarah said. "You mentioned that." "It was more than that," Jessica said. "He told me his ex-wife was crazy, that she had cleaned him out in the divorce, that he was barely getting by financially. He said he couldn't afford nice restaurants or expensive gifts because she was bleeding him dry with alimony." Sarah frowned. "But he bought you jewelry. I saw the receipts." "Cheap stuff," Jessica said, pulling a small box from her purse. "Costume jewelry from discount stores. I thought it was sweet that he was spending what little money he had on me." She opened the box to reveal a necklace that might have cost $20. Sarah stared at the fake pearls, confused. "But the receipts I found were for hundreds of dollars." "Those weren't for me," Jessica said quietly. "There was someone else." The world seemed to tilt around Sarah. "Someone else?" Jessica nodded miserably. "Her name is Monica. She works at his office. I found out about her 2 months after that day at your house. Tom was cheating on both of us." Sarah felt like she had been punched in the stomach. "How many others were there?" "I don't know," Jessica said. "But probably more than just Monica and me. He's not who we thought he was, Sarah. He's a serial cheater. A liar. He uses women and throws them away when he gets bored." Sarah's mind raced. All those business trips, those late nights at the office, those times when Tom had seemed distant and distracted. How long had this been going on? How many women had there been? "Why are you telling me this?" Sarah asked. "Because I feel terrible about what happened," Jessica said. "I destroyed your marriage and I didn't even get the real Tom. I got his lies and his scraps while he was giving the expensive gifts and fancy dinners to someone else." "You didn't destroy my marriage," Sarah said firmly. "Tom did that all by himself." Jessica looked up with surprise. "You're not angry with me?" "I was," Sarah admitted. "But you were lied to just as much as I was. Maybe more. At least I had 15 years of good memories before it all went bad. You just got used." They sat in silence for a moment, two women who had been hurt by the same man in different ways. "There's something else," Jessica said finally. "Tom's been calling me. Ever since your divorce was finalized, he's been trying to get back together with me. He says he made a mistake, that he wants to start over." Sarah almost laughed. "Let me guess. He told you he's learned his lesson, that he's ready to commit now." "How did you know?" "Because that's exactly what he told me when I caught him with you," Sarah said. "Tom doesn't learn lessons, Jessica. He just gets better at hiding things." Jessica nodded sadly. I figured that out. I told him no, but he keeps calling. He even showed up at my apartment last week. A chill ran down Sarah's spine. Is he bothering you? Harassing you? Sort of, Jessica admitted. He won't take no for an answer. He keeps saying we belong together, that we can make it work now that he's free. Sarah felt a familiar anger building in her chest. Even now, even after everything, Tom was hurting women. Using them. Manipulating them. Have you called the police? Sarah asked. What would I tell them? That my ex-boyfriend won't stop calling? That your ex-boyfriend is stalking you, Sarah said firmly. Jessica, if Tom is making you feel unsafe, you need to report it. They exchanged phone numbers before parting ways. Sarah felt drained as she drove home, her head spinning with this new information. She had thought she knew the extent of Tom's betrayal, but apparently she had only seen the tip of the iceberg. At home, she found James in his makeshift darkroom, developing photos for a local magazine. The smell of chemicals was sharp in the air, but she found it oddly comforting. This was James's world, his passion, and she was grateful to be part of it. How did it go? He asked, looking up from his work. Sarah told him everything Jessica had revealed. James listened without judgment, his face growing darker as the story unfolded. I'm sorry, he said when she finished. I know this must be painful to hear. Actually, it's not, Sarah said, surprising herself. It's liberating. All this time, I've been wondering what I did wrong, what I could have done differently to save my marriage. But there was nothing I could have done. Tom's problem isn't with me or our relationship. His problem is with himself. James pulled her into his arms, and Sarah breathed in his familiar scent of soap and coffee and something uniquely him. Does this change anything about our trip? He asked. Sarah pulled back to look at him. Why would it? I don't know. Finding out about more affairs, learning that Tom is bothering other women, it might bring up old feelings. Sarah shook her head. The only feeling it brings up is gratitude that I got away from him. And determination to make sure Jessica and this Monica woman know what they're dealing with. That evening, Sarah called Patricia, her divorce lawyer, and told her everything Jessica had revealed. Patricia listened carefully, taking notes. This is good information to have, Patricia said. If Tom tries to modify the divorce agreement or causes any other problems, this pattern of behavior could be relevant. And you're right to be concerned about this Jessica woman. If he's stalking her, she needs legal protection. Sarah also called Claire, who was predictably outraged. I knew that bastard was hiding something, Claire said. Multiple affairs? What a pig. The strangest part is that I'm not even surprised, Sarah said. Looking back, there were so many signs. So many times when his stories didn't add up or his behavior was strange. I just chose not to see it. Don't blame yourself, Claire said firmly. Tom is a master manipulator. He fooled everyone, not just you. As Sarah was getting ready for bed, her phone rang. A known number. Hello, she answered cautiously. Sarah, it's Jessica. I'm sorry to call so late, but Tom is outside my apartment. He's been out there for an hour just sitting in his car. I'm scared. Sarah's blood ran cold. Have you called the police? Yes, they're on their way. But I wanted to call you too. I thought you should know. You did the right thing, Sarah said. Stay inside, keep your doors locked, and don't engage with him at all. After Jessica hung up, Sarah sat on her bed, shaking with anger. Tom was not the man she had married. That man had been kind, respectful, loving. This version of Tom was a stranger, someone capable of behavior that frightened her. James appeared in the doorway, reading her expression immediately. What's wrong? Sarah told him about Jessica's call. James's jaw tightened with anger. Maybe we shouldn't leave, he said. If Tom is escalating his behavior, maybe you should stay close to home. No, Sarah said firmly. I won't let him control my life anymore. I won't let fear of what he might do keep me from living. But what if he... James? Sarah interrupted, taking his hands. I have spent the last 15 years living in fear. Fear of making Tom angry, fear of not being good enough, fear of rocking the boat. I'm done with fear. Tom has already taken 15 years of my life. I won't give him another day. James studied her face for a long moment, then nodded. Okay, but we take precautions. We make sure people know where we are, we stay in touch with your sister and your lawyer. Agreed, Sarah said. That night, Sarah lay awake thinking about Tom, about the man she had thought she married versus the man he had revealed himself to be. She felt a deep sadness for the years she had lost, the trust that had been broken, the innocence that could never be recovered. But she also felt something else. determination. Tom had taken her past, but he would not take her future. In 2 weeks she would be on a plane to Scotland with the man she loved, beginning the adventure of a lifetime. Tom could keep his lies, his manipulation, his trail of broken hearts. Sarah was choosing something better. She was choosing herself. The plane lifted off from Boston on a crisp March morning, carrying Sarah toward her new life. She pressed her face to the window and watched America shrink below her, feeling a mixture of excitement and terror that made her dizzy. "First time flying international?" asked the woman in the seat next to her. She was elderly with kind eyes and a Scottish accent. "Yes," Sarah admitted. "First time doing a lot of things." "How wonderful," the woman said. "I'm Moira. I'm going home to Edinburgh after visiting my daughter in Boston." "Where are you headed?" "Scotland first, then all over Europe," Sarah said. "My boyfriend is a photographer. We're working on a project together." James was seated across the aisle, his cameras carefully stowed in the overhead bin. He caught her eye and smiled, giving her a thumbs up. Sarah smiled back, feeling her nervousness ease. "How romantic," Moira said. "Are you married?" "Divorced," Sarah said, and was surprised by how easily the word came. "Recently divorced." "Good for you, dear," Moira said matter-of-factly. "Sometimes we have to tear down the old house before we can build a new one." Sarah thought about that as the plane crossed the Atlantic. Tearing down the old house. That's exactly what she had done. Demolished 15 years of marriage, sold the suburban home she had shared with Tom, left her predictable job and comfortable routines behind. But unlike demolition, which left only rubble, Sarah felt like she was building something beautiful from the pieces of her old life. She was taking the best parts of who she had been, her creativity, her sense of humor, her capacity for love, and combining them with the courage she was just discovering she possessed. They landed in Edinburgh on a grey morning that reminded Sarah of every romantic movie she had ever seen about Scotland. The air was crisp and clean, smelling of rain and history. James had arranged for them to stay in a small bed and breakfast in the old town, run by a couple named Graham and Fiona who welcomed them like family. "First time in Scotland?" Graham asked as he carried their bags upstairs. "First time anywhere outside America," Sarah said. "Oh, you're in for a treat then," Fiona said. "Scotland will steal your heart. Just you wait and see." Their room was small but cozy, with a window that looked out over the cobblestone streets of the Royal Mile. Sarah stood at the window watching people hurry past with their umbrellas and shopping bags, and felt like she was living in a fairy tale. "How do you feel?" James asked, coming up behind her and wrapping his arms around her waist. "Like I'm dreaming," Sarah said. "Like I'm going to wake up and be back in my old life, making Tom's breakfast and pretending to be happy." "This is real," James said, kissing her neck. "You're really here. We're really doing this." They spent their first week in Edinburgh, exploring the castle, walking the Royal Mile, discovering tiny pubs tucked away in narrow alleys. James photographed everything, the ancient stones, the street musicians, the way the light fell through the windows of St. Giles Cathedral. Sarah filled her journal with observations and stories, interviewing shopkeepers and tour guides and fellow travelers. "You're a natural at this," James said one evening as they sat in a pub called the World's End, sharing fish and chips and pints of local ale. "At what?" Sarah asked. "Talking to people. Drawing out their stories. That woman today at the wool shop told you her entire life history." Sarah laughed. "Agnes was lonely. She just needed someone to listen." "That's exactly what I mean," James said. "You have a gift for making people feel heard. That's what great travel writing is about, not just describing places but connecting with the people who live there." Sarah felt a warm glow of pride. Tom had rarely complimented her work, had often seemed bored when she talked about her writing. James was different. He encouraged her, challenged her, made her feel like her dreams were worth pursuing. Their second week took them to the Highlands, where they rented a car and drove through landscapes that took Sarah's breath away. Rolling hills covered in purple heather, ancient castles perched on cliff tops, locks that reflected the sky like mirrors. James stopped frequently to photograph the scenery, and Sarah found herself seeing the world through his eyes, noticing the way shadows fell across a field, the way morning mist clung to the mountains. They stayed in small bed and breakfasts in villages with names like Pitlochry and Inverness. Sarah interviewed innkeepers and farmers, learning about Highland traditions and clan histories. She was amazed by how different life was here, how connected people seemed to their land and their heritage. "I could live here," she said one evening as they sat by a peat fire in their B&B, listening to their host play traditional Scottish songs on his fiddle. "Could you really?" James asked. Leave America behind completely? Sarah considered the question. A year ago she would have said no immediately. She had been so rooted in her old life, so afraid of change. But now, I don't know, she said honestly. But I love how it feels to be somewhere completely new where nobody knows who I used to be. Who did you used to be? James asked. Sarah thought about it. Tom's wife. The good daughter who never caused trouble. The employee who always said yes to overtime. Someone who was afraid of her own shadow. And who are you now? Sarah smiled. I'm still figuring that out. 3 weeks into their trip, they were staying in a fishing village on the coast when Sarah's phone rang. It was Claire calling from Boston. I'm sorry to bother you, Claire said, but I thought you should know. Tom's been asking about you. Sarah's stomach clenched. What do you mean? He called Mom yesterday asking if she knew how to reach you. He said he had something important to tell you about the house. What about the house? Sarah asked, walking outside so James wouldn't hear. I don't know, but Mom gave him your number. I'm sorry, Sarah. She still feels bad about the divorce. She thinks you two might work things out. Sarah closed her eyes, feeling her peaceful bubble burst. Did he call me? I don't know. Have you checked your messages? Sarah hadn't. International roaming was expensive, so she had been checking her phone only once a day for emergencies. She scrolled through her missed calls and found 6 from Tom's number, plus several text messages. Sarah, please call me. It's about the house. Something's happened at the beach house. You need to know. Why aren't you answering? This is important. I know you're in Europe with him. We need to talk. The last message was different, angrier. You can't run away forever. I know where you are. Sarah's hands were shaking as she called Claire back. He's been calling me. And texting. He says something happened to the house. I can drive down there and check on it if you want, Claire offered. Would you? I'm probably overreacting, but... You're not overreacting, Claire said firmly. Tom's behavior has been escalating. That Jessica girl called me yesterday too. He's still bothering her. After they hung up, Sarah sat on a bench overlooking the harbor trying to calm down. She had been so happy, so free. Now Tom was intruding on her new life, making her feel anxious and scared again. James found her there an hour later, after she had failed to return to their room. What's wrong? He asked, sitting beside her. Sarah told him about the calls and messages. James's face darkened as she read them aloud. That last message sounds like a threat, he said. I know. I'm scared, James. What if he does something to the house? What if he's trying to sabotage the trip somehow? James took her hands. We'll figure this out. Do you want to call him back? No, Sarah said immediately. I don't want to talk to him. I don't want to give him the satisfaction of ruining this for me. Then don't, James said simply. Let your sister check on the house. Block his number. Don't let him steal this experience from you. Sarah nodded, feeling some of her courage return. You're right. I won't let him do this to me. That night, Claire called back with good news. The house is fine, she reported. I talked to your neighbors, the Hendersons. They said everything looks normal. No sign of Tom or any problems. Then what was he calling about? Sarah wondered. Probably nothing, Claire said. Probably just trying to get your attention to make you worry. Don't let him win, Sarah. You're living your dream. Don't let his games ruin it. Sarah blocked Tom's number that night and changed her international phone plan so she could stay in better touch with home. She wasn't going to let fear control her anymore. The next morning, she woke up to a spectacular sunrise over the North Sea. James was already up, photographing the light as it danced on the water. Sarah grabbed her journal and went to sit beside him, writing about the way the Scottish coast made her feel wild and free and alive. She was not the same woman who had discovered her husband's affair a year ago. That woman had been passive, reactive, defined by other people's choices. This woman was active, decisive, creating her own story. Tom could keep his games and his threats. Sarah had found something better. She had found herself. By the time they reached Ireland, Sarah had developed a routine. She woke early to write in her journal while James photographed the sunrise. They spent their days exploring together, Sarah interviewing locals while James captured the essence of each place through his lens. Evenings were for reviewing their work, planning the next day's adventure, and falling deeper in love with each other and with this nomadic life they were creating. The rolling green hills of County Cork reminded Sarah of a painting, too perfect to be real. They stayed in a small inn run by a woman named Bridget, who had an opinion about everything and the warmth to make her guests feel like family. You're not married then? Bridget asked on their first morning, serving them a breakfast that could have fed a small army. Not to each other, Sarah said carefully. She had gotten used to this question in Scotland, but it still made her uncomfortable. Divorced? Bridget asked with the directness Sarah was learning was typical of Irish hospitality. Yes, Sarah said. Good for you, Bridget said, surprising her. Life's too short to stay with the wrong person. My first husband was a drunk and a fool. I put up with it for 20 years before I came to my senses. What happened? Sarah asked, intrigued. I threw him out and married my best friend, Bridget said cheerfully. Patrick and I have been happy as larks for 15 years now. Sometimes you have to make a mistake before you can make the right choice. That afternoon, while James photographed a medieval castle, Sarah sat in the village pub talking to Bridget about love and marriage and second chances. It was the kind of conversation she had never had with the women in her old life. Honest, unfiltered, real. The trick, Bridget said, polishing glasses behind the bar, is knowing the difference between someone who challenges you to be better and someone who just makes you miserable. How do you tell the difference? Sarah asked. If you're growing, you're in the right place, Bridget said simply. If you're shrinking, you need to run. That evening, Sarah called Claire to check in. Everything at home was quiet, no word from Tom, no problems with the house, no issues with work. You sound different, Claire said. Happier. More. I don't know, more like yourself. I feel like myself, Sarah said. For the first time in years, I feel like I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. I'm proud of you, Claire said. It takes courage to blow up your whole life and start over. I didn't blow it up, Sarah said, looking out the window at the Irish countryside. I just stopped pretending it was working. They spent 2 weeks in Ireland, traveling from Cork to Dublin, from the cliffs of Moher to the Ring of Kerry. Sarah filled 2 journals with stories and observations. James shot roll after roll of film, capturing not just the famous landmarks but the quiet moments, an old man feeding sheep, children playing in a village square, the way evening light fell across a farmer's field. In Dublin, they met with an editor from National Geographic who was thrilled with James's preliminary work. She was equally impressed with Sarah's writing samples. Have you considered writing travel pieces professionally? The editor asked over dinner. Your voice is authentic, unpretentious. You write about places like a person, not a tourist. Sarah felt a thrill of possibility. I've never really thought about it. Think about it, the editor said. The travel writing world needs fresh voices. People who can make readers feel like they're experiencing a place, not just looking at it. That night in their hotel room, Sarah and James talked about the future. Not just the remaining months of their European adventure but what came after. I don't want to go back to my old job, Sarah admitted. I love what I'm doing here. I love the freedom, the creativity, the constant learning. So don't go back, James said. You have options now. Freelance travel writing, maybe a book deal based on this trip. You don't have to go back to the life you left behind. Sarah felt a flutter of fear. But what about security? What about health insurance and retirement planning and all those practical things? What about living? James countered gently. Sarah, you're 38 years old. You have skills, talent, experience. You don't need to stay in a job that doesn't fulfill you just because it's safe. Tom always said I was too impractical, Sarah said. That I needed to be more realistic about money and career stability. Tom was wrong about a lot of things, James said firmly. Besides, what's realistic about staying in a life that makes you miserable? From Ireland, they took a ferry to Wales, then drove through England's Lake District. Sarah was enchanted by the countryside that had inspired the Romantic poets, spending hours in Grasmere where Wordsworth had lived and written. She felt a connection to the landscape that surprised her with its intensity. I understand now why they wrote about this place, she told James as they walked beside Lake Windermere. There's something about the light here, the way the mountains reflect in the water. It makes you want to capture it somehow. That's what you're doing, James said. With words instead of paint or photography. They had been traveling for 2 months now, and Sarah could feel herself changing in ways both subtle and profound. She was braver, more confident, more willing to take risks. She spoke to strangers without hesitation, tried food she had never heard of, navigated foreign cities with growing confidence. But the biggest change was in her relationship with James. What had started as comfort during a difficult time had deepened into something she had never experienced before, a partnership based on mutual respect, shared adventure, and genuine friendship as well as love. In Cornwall, they stayed in a cottage overlooking the sea. The dramatic coastline reminded Sarah of the Maine coast, but wilder somehow, more untamed. She wrote about the fishing villages clinging to cliff tops, the ancient stone circles scattered across the moors, the way the ocean here seemed to have moods that changed with the weather. My editor loves the samples you've been sending, James told her one morning as they walked along a coastal path. She wants to know if you'd be interested in collaborating on a book, your writing, my photographs. Sarah stopped walking. Seriously? Seriously? She thinks we have something special here. The way you write about places, combined with my images, she thinks it could be really successful. Sarah felt a surge of excitement mixed with terror. A book deal? Her writing paired with James's photography? It was beyond anything she had ever imagined for herself. What would that mean for us? She asked. Professionally, I mean. Mixing business with this. She gestured between them. I don't know, James admitted. But I think we're good enough together both personally and professionally to make it work. That night, Sarah called Claire to tell her about the book opportunity. Are you kidding me? Claire shrieked. Sarah, that's amazing. You're going to be a published author. It's just a possibility, Sarah said, but she was grinning. Nothing's definite yet. It will be, Claire said confidently. You're living the life you were meant to live. I can hear it in your voice. After they hung up, Sarah sat in their cottage garden, listening to the sound of waves against the rocks below. She thought about her old life, the suburban house, the predictable job, the marriage that had slowly suffocated her creativity and ambition. It felt like a different person's life now, like a story she had heard rather than lived. A year ago, if someone had told her she would be divorced, traveling across Europe with a photographer, and discussing book deals, she would have laughed. That person, Tom's wife, the woman who played it safe and never rocked the boat, was gone. In her place was someone Sarah was still getting to know but liked better every day. 3 months into their trip, they crossed the Channel to France. Sarah's college French came back to her gradually as they made their way through Normandy, then down the Loire Valley. The castles and vineyards were beautiful, but it was the people who captured her heart. The baker in Amboise who taught her to make perfect croissants, the elderly woman in Sancerre who invited them to dinner and told stories about the German occupation. You have a gift for this, James said one evening as they sat in a cafe in Lyon, reviewing the day's work. The way you get people to open up, to share their stories. It's not just talent, it's genuine curiosity and empathy. Sarah blushed at the praise. Tom used to say I talked too much to strangers. That I was too trusting. Tom was an idiot, James said bluntly. Your openness is one of the things I love most about you. In Provence, they rented a small house in a village outside Avignon. Sarah fell in love with the rhythm of life there, the morning markets filled with fresh produce and flowers, the long lunches under plane trees, the way the light turned everything golden in the late afternoon. She was writing in the garden one morning when her phone rang. It was a number she didn't recognize, but something made her answer. Sarah? This is Monica. Sarah's blood ran cold. Monica, the other woman Jessica had mentioned. How did you get this number? From Tom, Monica said. Look, I know this is weird, but I need to talk to you. About him. About what he's been doing. Sarah walked away from the house so James wouldn't hear. What about him? He's been telling me things about you, Monica said. Lies, I think. He says you're stalking him, that you're trying to sabotage his relationships. But after talking to Jessica, I don't think that's true. It's definitely not true, Sarah said. I haven't spoken to Tom since our divorce mediation. That's what Jessica said. Sarah, I think Tom is dangerous. He's been following me, showing up at my work, at my apartment. When I told him I didn't want to see him anymore, he got angry. Really angry. Sarah felt a chill despite the warm Provençal sun. Have you called the police? Yes, but they said unless he threatens me directly, there's not much they can do. But I'm scared. And I think you should be too. What do you mean? He talks about you constantly, Monica said. About how you ruined his life, how you turned everyone against him. He's obsessed with you, Sarah. And he knows you're in Europe with James. Sarah's heart was pounding. How does he know that? He showed me pictures from your social media. And James's. He's been tracking your trips, Sarah. He knows where you've been. After Monica hung up, Sarah sat in the garden for a long time, trying to process what she had learned. Tom was monitoring their trip? Following their movements through social media? She scrolled through her Instagram account and James's, looking at the photos they had posted. There they were, Edinburgh Castle, the cliffs of Maher, the Lake District, Cornwall. A perfect roadmap of their journey. Stupid, she muttered, immediately changing her privacy settings. So stupid. James found her there an hour later, still staring at her phone. What's wrong? He asked, reading her expression. Sarah told him about Monica's call. James listened with growing alarm. "We need to be more careful," he said. "No more posting our location in real time. And maybe we should consider cutting the trip short." "No," Sarah said firmly. "I won't let him chase me home. I won't let him control my life anymore." "Sarah, if he's really tracking us, then we'll be smarter about it," she interrupted. "We'll be more careful, more private. But I'm not running away. I'm not giving him that power over me." That night they had their first real fight. James wanted to fly home immediately. Sarah refused. They went to bed angry, lying stiffly on opposite sides of the bed. In the morning, Sarah woke to find James sitting in the garden with his coffee, staring at his phone. "I've been thinking," he said when she joined him, "about what you said last night." "I'm sorry I was so stubborn," Sarah began, but James held up a hand. "You were right," he said. "Running away gives him exactly what he wants. But we need to take precautions." "What kind of precautions?" "We change our itinerary. Instead of going to Spain next, we go to Italy. We stop posting on social media entirely. We check in with your sister and my editor daily. And if anything else happens, any sign that he's actually found us, we leave immediately." Sarah nodded. "That sounds reasonable." "And Sarah? If he shows up here, I'm calling the police immediately. I don't care what he says or why he's here. I won't let him hurt you." Looking into James's eyes, Sarah saw something that took her breath away. Not just love but fierce protectiveness. He would stand between her and danger without hesitation. It was a feeling she had never experienced with Tom, who had always expected her to handle her own problems. "I love you," she said quietly. "I love you too," James replied. "That's why we're going to be smart about this. We're going to finish this trip, write our book and build our life together. But we're going to do it safely." As they drove toward Italy that afternoon, Sarah felt a complex mix of emotions. Fear about Tom's escalating behavior, anger that he was trying to intrude on her happiness, but also gratitude for James's support and determination not to let Tom win. She had come too far to give up now. She had found her voice, her courage, her true self. Tom could try to scare her, but he couldn't make her go back to being the woman she used to be. That woman was gone forever and good riddance. In her place was someone stronger, braver, more alive than she had ever imagined possible. The road to Italy stretched ahead, full of promise and possibility. Sarah rolled down the window and let the wind blow through her hair, feeling free in a way that no amount of Tom's manipulation could touch. Italy welcomed them with sunshine and warmth after the gray skies of northern France. They drove through Tuscany in their rented car, past rolling hills covered with vineyards and olive groves, medieval towns perched on hilltops like jewels against the blue sky. Sarah felt herself relaxing for the first time since Monica's phone call. Here, surrounded by beauty and history, it was easier to forget about Tom's threats and manipulation. She threw herself into her work with renewed passion, interviewing winemakers and artists, writing about the way life in Tuscany seemed to move at a more human pace. They rented a small apartment in Siena for a week, with windows that looked out over the famous Piazza del Campo. Sarah loved the ritual of their Italian mornings, espresso and pastries at a local cafe, reading the newspaper while James planned their photography for the day. "I could live here," Sarah said one morning as they walked through the narrow streets of the old city. "We could," James said, squeezing her hand. "After the book is finished, after we figure out what comes next. There's nothing stopping us from living wherever we want." The freedom of that statement still amazed Sarah. Nothing stopping them. No mortgage tying them to one place, no job requiring her presence, no obligations except to each other and their work. They had been in Siena for 3 days when Sarah received another phone call from an unknown number. This time she almost didn't answer. "Sarah, thank God," a familiar voice said. It was Patricia, her divorce lawyer. "Patricia? How did you get this number?" "Your sister gave it to me." "Sarah, I need to tell you something. Tom filed a motion yesterday claiming you violated the terms of your divorce agreement." Sarah's stomach dropped. "What? How?" "He's claiming you've been harassing his new girlfriend and interfering with his personal relationships. He says you've been calling his friends and co-workers, trying to turn them against him." "That's insane," Sarah said. "I've been in Europe for months. I haven't contacted anyone about Tom except to warn Jessica and Monica about his behavior." "I know," Patricia said. "But he's asking the court to hold you in contempt and to revisit the property settlement. He claims your vindictive behavior proves you shouldn't have gotten the beach house." Sarah sat down heavily on their apartment's small balcony. "Can he do that?" "He can try, but it won't succeed. We have evidence that you've been out of the country, that his claims are false. But Sarah, there's something else. Tom's lawyer subpoenaed your phone records. They're trying to prove you've been making harassing calls. Let them, Sarah said. My phone records will show I've been in Europe. The only calls I made to anyone connected to Tom were to Jessica and Monica, and those were conversations they initiated. That's what I figured, Patricia said. But I wanted to warn you. This is probably Tom's attempt to force you to come home, to disrupt your trip. After Patricia hung up, Sarah sat on the balcony looking out at the medieval city spread below her. The ancient stones seemed to mock her modern problems. People had been living and loving and fighting in this place for over 1,000 years. Her troubles with Tom were just a tiny blip in the grand scheme of things. James found her there an hour later. Another crisis? He asked, reading her expression. Sarah told him about Patricia's call. James listened with growing anger. He's escalating, James said. First the calls, then stalking Monica and Jessica, now false legal claims. I'm worried about what comes next. There won't be a next, Sarah said firmly. Patricia says his motion will fail. He has no evidence because I haven't done what he's claiming. That's not what worries me, James said. What worries me is that he's getting more desperate. Desperate people do unpredictable things. That evening they had dinner at a small trattoria near their apartment. The owner, a man named Giuseppe, had taken a liking to them and always made sure they got the best table and the freshest pasta. You look sad tonight, Giuseppe observed as he served their wine. Trouble in paradise? Sarah hesitated, then found herself telling Giuseppe about Tom, about the divorce, about the legal harassment. Giuseppe listened with the serious attention Italians gave to matters of the heart. This man, Giuseppe said when she finished, he is trying to steal your joy. This is the worst kind of thief, not someone who takes your money, but someone who takes your happiness. How do I stop him? Sarah asked. You don't give him what he wants, Giuseppe said simply. He wants you afraid, running home, giving up this beautiful life you are building. So you stay. You be happy. You refuse to let him win. Over tiramisu and grappa, Giuseppe told them about his own first marriage, which had ended badly when his wife left him for his business partner. For 2 years I was angry, he said. I wanted revenge, wanted them to suffer like I suffered. But then I realized, while I was thinking about them, they were not thinking about me. I was giving them space in my head rent-free. What did you do? James asked. I stopped caring about them and started caring about me, Giuseppe said. I met my beautiful Maria, I opened this restaurant, I made a new life. The best revenge is living well. That night, as they lay in bed listening to the sounds of the city settling down for sleep, Sarah thought about Giuseppe's words. The best revenge is living well. She was living well. Better than she ever had. Why should she let Tom's desperation change that? I want to stay, she told James. I want to finish our trip, write our book, figure out what comes next. I don't want to let him chase me home. Are you sure? James asked. I'm sure, Sarah said. But I think we should take extra precautions. Maybe we should avoid posting anything at all, even with privacy settings. And we should check in with people at home more frequently. The next morning they drove to Florence. Sarah had been looking forward to this part of their trip for months. The art, the architecture, the history. She wasn't going to let Tom's games ruin it for her. But Florence brought its own surprise. They were standing in line at the Uffizi Gallery when Sarah spotted a familiar figure in the crowd ahead of them. Her blood turned to ice. James? She whispered, grabbing his arm. That's him. That's Tom. James followed her gaze and saw a man in a blue shirt and khakis, about 50 feet ahead of them in line. From behind he did look like Tom, the same height and build, the same sandy hair. Are you sure? James asked. Sarah studied the figure more carefully. Her heart was pounding so hard she could barely think. I think so. But what would he be doing here? Only one way to find out, James said grimly. He started walking toward the man, Sarah close behind him. But when they got closer, Sarah realized her mistake. The man was younger than Tom, with different facial features entirely. Just a tourist who happened to have similar coloring. False alarm, she said, sagging with relief. You're shaking, James observed. Sarah looked down at her hands. He was right. I guess I'm more rattled by all this than I thought. They left the line and found a cafe where Sarah could sit down and collect herself. She felt foolish for the mistake, but also realized how much Tom's harassment was affecting her. She was jumping at shadows, seeing threats where none existed. Maybe we should go home, she said quietly. No, James said firmly. That's exactly what he wants. He wants you paranoid and scared, looking over your shoulder constantly. Don't give him that power. But what if it really had been him? What if he actually came here? Then we would have called the police and had him arrested for stalking, James said. But it wasn't him, Sarah. He's probably sitting in his apartment in Boston, trying to figure out how to make your life miserable from 3,000 miles away. That afternoon, they did visit the Uffizi, and Sarah lost herself in the beauty of Renaissance art. Standing in front of Botticelli's Birth of Venus, she felt her perspective returning. Tom was one small, bitter man trying to hold on to something that was already gone. She was standing in one of the world's great museums with a man who loved her, living a dream she had never thought possible. Giuseppe was right. The best revenge was living well. From Florence they drove down to Rome, then on to the Amalfi Coast. The dramatic coastline reminded Sarah of their first day at the beach house in Maine, when she had confronted Tom and Jessica. But now, instead of feeling like her world was ending, she felt like it was just beginning. They spent a week in a small hotel in Positano, with a terrace that looked out over the Mediterranean. Sarah wrote some of her best pieces there, inspired by the beauty of the coast and the warmth of the people they met. The book is really coming together, James said one evening as they reviewed their work. We have enough material for at least 300 pages, maybe more. What happens when we finish it? Sarah asked. We find an agent, sell it to a publisher, promote it when it comes out, James said. And then we start planning our next adventure. Our next adventure? I was thinking South America, James said with a grin. Patagonia, the Amazon, maybe Machu Picchu. Sarah felt a thrill of excitement. More travel, more writing, more life lived on their own terms. It was everything she had never dared to dream when she was Tom's wife. I love you, she said, reaching across the table to take his hand. I love you too, James replied. And I love the life we're building together. That night, Sarah called Claire to check in. Everything at home was quiet, no more legal motions from Tom, no problems with the house, no word from Jessica or Monica. I think he's given up, Claire said hopefully. Maybe he's finally realized he can't control you anymore. Maybe, Sarah said, but something in her gut told her Tom wasn't done yet. He was too proud, too controlling, too unable to accept defeat. But whatever he was planning, she wouldn't let it touch the happiness she had found. She was no longer the woman who had lived in fear of his moods, who had made herself small to avoid his anger. She was Sarah Wilson, travel writer and adventurer, partner to a man who cherished her dreams as much as his own. She was exactly who she was meant to be. And no amount of manipulation or legal maneuvering could change that. Their final month in Europe took them through Spain and Portugal, following the ancient pilgrim routes and coastal towns that had seen centuries of travelers seeking their own transformations. Sarah felt a kinship with those medieval pilgrims as she walked the same paths, writing about the timeless human desire to leave behind the familiar and discover something new about oneself. In Santiago de Compostela, they met other travelers from around the world who had walked the Camino. Sarah interviewed them for her book, fascinated by their stories of why they had chosen to make the journey. I was lost, said Maria, a banker from Germany who had walked for 30 days. My husband died, my children were grown, and I didn't know who I was anymore. The Camino helped me remember. Remember what? Sarah asked. That I was strong. That I could do hard things. That there was more to life than just surviving. Sarah understood completely. She had been surviving for years in her marriage to Tom, going through the motions of living without really being alive. This trip had awakened something in her that she hadn't even known was sleeping. In Portugal, they rented a small house in a fishing village near Porto. The Atlantic stretched endlessly before them, wild and beautiful. Sarah spent her mornings riding on the beach, watching the fishermen bring in their nets while James photographed the changing light on the water. They had been there for a week when Sarah received a call that changed everything. Sarah, it's Patricia. I have news. Sarah could tell from her lawyer's tone that it wasn't good news. What now? Tom was arrested yesterday, Patricia said, for stalking Monica. Apparently he's been escalating his behavior. He broke into her apartment building and was found sleeping in the hallway outside her door. Sarah felt a mix of relief and vindication. Is she okay? She's fine but understandably shaken. The police found evidence that he's been following her for weeks, photos of her apartment, her work schedule, notes about her daily routine. It's pretty disturbing stuff. Sarah closed her eyes, thinking about how close she had come to staying in that marriage, to continuing to live with a man capable of such behavior. What happens now? She asked. He's been charged with stalking and breaking and entering. His lawyer is trying to get him into a mental health program instead of jail time. But Sarah, there's something else. When they searched his apartment, they found materials related to you and James. Sarah's blood ran cold. What kind of materials? Printouts of your social media posts, maps of the places you visited in Europe, airline records showing your travel dates. And notes, Sarah. Detailed notes about your itinerary, your relationship with James, even speculation about when you might come home. The phone slipped in Sarah's sweaty palm. He was planning something. It looks that way, Patricia said. The FBI is investigating whether his behavior constitutes interstate stalking. They want to interview you when you get home. After Patricia hung up, Sarah sat on the beach staring at the ocean. Tom had been tracking their entire trip, planning something that the FBI was now investigating. What would have happened if they had followed their original itinerary? What if Monica hadn't called to warn her? James found her there as the sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. How bad? He asked, sitting beside her in the sand. Sarah told him everything. James listened in growing horror, his jaw tightening with each detail. We're going home, he said when she finished. Tomorrow. For once, Sarah didn't argue. The magic of their European adventure had been shattered by the reality of Tom's obsession. She wanted to be home, surrounded by familiar walls and people who could protect her. What about the book? She asked. We have plenty of material, James said. We can finish it from home. They flew back to Boston 2 days later, leaving behind the small Portuguese village that had felt like paradise. The contrast was jarring, from the peaceful rhythm of European coastal life to the harsh fluorescent lights and aggressive energy of an American airport. Claire was waiting for them at baggage claim, her face tight with worry. How are you holding up? She asked, hugging Sarah fiercely. I'm okay, Sarah said, and was surprised to realize it was true. Scared but okay. The FBI agent who interviewed Sarah the next day was a woman named Detective Reynolds, professional but kind. She explained that Tom's case was being taken seriously because of the interstate nature of his stalking and the evidence of premeditation. We believe he was planning to follow you to Europe, Detective Reynolds said. We found research about flights to various European cities, hotel bookings that were never completed, even inquiries about rental cars in several countries. Sarah shuddered. What would have happened if he had found us? We don't know, Detective Reynolds said honestly. But based on his behavior with Monica and the materials we found in his apartment, we're treating this as a credible threat. Tom was ultimately sentenced to 2 years in prison for stalking Monica, with an additional restraining order that prohibited him from contacting Sarah or James. The judge was particularly harsh, noting Tom's pattern of escalating behavior toward multiple victims and his complete lack of remorse. Sarah attended the sentencing hearing, wanting to see for herself that Tom would be held accountable. He looked smaller in his orange jumpsuit, older and more fragile than she remembered. When his eyes met hers across the courtroom, she felt nothing, no anger, no fear, no residual love. Just a profound sadness for the man he had become and relief that she had escaped. After the hearing, Sarah stood on the courthouse steps breathing the crisp Boston air. It was finally over. Tom was in prison, she was safe, and her life was her own again. How do you feel? James asked, taking her hand. Free, Sarah said. Really, truly free. 6 months later, their book, Coastal Hearts, A Journey Through Europe's Forgotten Villages, was published to excellent reviews. The combination of Sarah's intimate, personal writing and James's stunning photography captured readers' imaginations and topped several bestseller lists. They celebrated the book launch at a party in their new apartment overlooking Boston Harbor. Sarah's agent was already talking about a second book, perhaps focusing on South America. James had assignments lined up through the following year. Their life together was everything Sarah had dreamed of but never dared to hope for. The beach house in Maine had become their weekend retreat, a place where Sarah could write in peace and James could develop his photographs. She had exorcised Tom's presence from the house gradually, replacing memories of betrayal with new experiences of love and creativity. Standing on the deck one evening, watching the sunset paint the ocean in brilliant colors, Sarah thought about the journey that had brought her here. A year and a half ago, she had been trapped in a marriage that was slowly suffocating her spirit. Now she was a published author, an adventurer, a woman who had learned to trust her own instincts and fight for her own happiness. Any regrets? James asked, joining her with 2 glasses of wine. Sarah considered the question seriously. Regrets about the years she had wasted with Tom? About the pain of divorce? About the fear and uncertainty of starting over? No, she said finally. Not a single one. Even the bad parts led me here, to this life, to you. I wouldn't change anything. James smiled and raised his glass. To second chances. To second chances, Sarah agreed, clinking her glass against his. Below them, the ocean rolled endlessly toward the shore, washing the beach clean with each wave. Sarah closed her eyes and listened to its rhythm, feeling grateful for the tides that had carried away her old life and brought her this new one. She had learned that the best revenge wasn't plotting or scheming or trying to make someone pay for their mistakes. The best revenge was living well, choosing happiness, refusing to let someone else's darkness dim your own light. Tom was in prison paying for his choices. Monica and Jessica were healing, building new lives free from his manipulation. And Sarah was here in this beautiful place, with a man who cherished her dreams and supported her ambitions, writing books and planning adventures and living exactly the life she was meant to live. The future stretched ahead of them, full of possibility and promise. Tomorrow they would start planning their next trip, their next book, their next chapter together. But tonight, they would watch the stars appear one by one over the ocean, grateful for the journey that had brought them here and excited for wherever the tide might carry them next. Sarah had finally learned the most important lesson of all. She was the author of her own story, and she intended to write herself a beautiful ending.